Well, welcome to another Texas Sisters Press book launch. Well, it's kind of a sort of informal book launch. I have author Christopher Hooten here with me today, and we're going to be talking about his new release, The Stalking Wolf. How you doing today, Christopher?
I'm doing good, CJ.
Well, I like this book. It's nice and short for those who want a quick read, but it is actually based on a true story, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I was along the Yukon River many years ago and lived in a village several years. As a matter of fact, I was in the villages for 9 years. And I had an old guide that would stop by occasionally, a big game guide in Alaska along the Yukon River. Mm-hmm. And one day, Larry's his first name, and one day I was down at the river edge and he taxied up in his float plane and we sat around for a while and we talked about various subjects. And he said, "Well, do you know about this story?" And I said, "No, I've never heard about it." So he himself, being a big game guide, told me a story about a friend of his that was a guide, and this had happened to one of his children.
Oh.
And this had occurred several years even back before I was along the Yukon. But anyway, the story was pretty compelling. I modernized it just a little bit to bring it into the more or less the current world. But it had happened. It was a very traumatic event, got hardly, if any, news coverage. And it was not too many years after the 1964 massive earthquake in Alaska. Mm-hmm. And so that's the story that he told me. And so I took the story, but it definitely is based on absolutely total true events.
Okay. Now, we don't want to give away too much, but can you give a brief summary about what it is about?
They both the two main characters, the young man and the young woman, one 14 and one 15 years old, had her dad, the young lady's dad, was a assistant guide, and the boy, 15-year-old boy, his dad was the main guide, and he needed help. The dad needed help. He had too many clients in the camp, and having been a guide myself, I know what it's like. And so he needed help. And so they had someone fly them out through Merrill Pass, which is one of the most treacherous passes in all of the state of Alaska. And there are many. And anyway, they had a guy that was a substitute pilot, and mistakes were made. And those were, they combine, as you know, on an aircraft in the middle of the mountains as big as ours are up here. One mistake leads to another mistake, and then pretty soon they were left alone, these two in the wilderness.
But they weren't alone.
They weren't alone. They weren't alone, and I have, trust me, I have had the howling of wolves around our cabin all winter long. We know I've got one hanging on my wall right here in my cabin. Mm-hmm. So we know the threat of the wolf. And usually they're not as big a threat, but when you invade their territory, like this young couple did, and they weren't, of course, a couple, but they were two young kids, mm-hmm. It wasn't taken lightly by the wolves. And so it becomes a real true story of survival.
Gotcha. Well, for those who want to pay attention and find out, this is The Stalking Wolf. You can find it on Christopher Hooten's website, which is ChristopherHootenWrites.com. That's ChristopherHootenWrites.com. Well, thank you, Christopher. Make sure to check this out. You can get it in ebook and paperback. And then hopefully, if you're in the Alaskan area, he's going to have this in some bookstores for you to check out as well. So thank you, sir. And we will catch you on the next book. In the meantime, get The Stalking Wolf.
Okay.
Bye.